Hi, we are actually live. I cannot believe this. I, I, I'm, j- I'm in Tokyo, which is a place. No, I'm in Kyoto. I'm so sorry. I just came from Tokyo, and I gotta be honest with you. It is 5 in the afternoon here. Mentally, I'm kind of checked out. Like I'm starting. I've got a vacation lining up next week, and I want a bunch of really great episodes lined up for the audience whilst I'm on vacation. So what I what I did was I thought, well, I'm gonna get my friends to help me. Surely they're eager to join, and then I like pinged Moritz, and I'm sure I have a picture of what it was like receiving my message because I now I understand you were also checking out and so thank you for being here. I grabbed. It's like you were running for the door. I was like, no, get back here. I need help.
Yeah, I just started my day, so it's only 10 o'clock here in Germany. But
Yeah.
this is my last day before my summer vacation, and then I'm gone
Ah,
for like 2 weeks.
well deserved. It has been
Yeah,
the craziest year for everybody. But I mean, first last year, finally, we ship Spring Boot
yes,
4.0
yeah.
and Spring Framework 7 and the whole release train, which is huge. Um, and then this year. Whew, what I've talked about this a few times on the old show here, but this year we had we had a few CVEs. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
A few, yeah. I guess you can
Um,
say that.
yeah, just so how are you doing? I For people who don't know, Moritz had a full set of hair, a full head of hair right before
Before
the
that, yeah,
4.0
yeah. And now
the
they're all gone.
it's all
Everything's
gone,
gone.
all gone.
All gone. Only the beard is like left.
Wow, whatever. I mean, and so I know you've been like everybody. Just it's a pressure cooker. I've never. I mean, this is usually after the big like after 3.0. Obviously, we were all working, we're all doing great things, but it's sort of like stabilize,
Yeah, that was the
refine,
plan, yeah.
and I know a lot of us were looking forward to like just decompressing after the incredible build up to that, and oh man. So how you doing?
Right.
Let's.
So in 4.0 we shipped the big modularization stuff of Spring Boot, which was a lot
Yeah,
of work. And then we were quite happy to get some pause and get features into 4.1. But
yeah.
this plan did not survive the reality. Yeah.
And also you did nullability. The entire
Oh yes.
all
Yeah.
of us, all the Spring projects are
Right.
nullability as well. So there's two
Yeah.
huge efforts that um I don't think people will see directly the consequences of the modularization, even though it's definitely worth doing and the code is better and you can see
Yeah.
the startup time is better and we have now the starter for the REST client, which is something I've been wanting for 12 years.
Yeah.
Lots of really great like knock-on effects, and that'll put us in a great position going forward, obviously. But
Right.
it's one of those things where it's just like huge, a whole code base wide,
Yeah.
So
I
every
guess we
person,
touched every file. Yeah.
every file, yeah,
Yeah. I
which is
guess.
also
Yeah.
a little confusing for me because suddenly all the synth tags say
Yeah.
4.0, and I was like, wait, that code's been here forever. I know that because I wrote it. It's like there's
Yeah.
no way
That's
that's
true.
new.
Yeah. We
Uh,
moved them all. Yeah. And when we move them, they have new packages, and then they get a new synth tag. Yeah.
which is a little confusing. So apparently all of Spring Boot has only been here since 4.0,
Mm.
which is weird because what happened to the ones from before? Okay, so let's talk about 4.0 first, just briefly,
Yes.
because I feel
Hmm.
like that release is still there's so much about it, and then we should talk about 4.1, which is even
Yeah.
crazier.
Yep.
Um, and by the way, oh, I got ahead of myself. Who are you? You're my friend Moritz, but what do you
Yes,
do?
right. So my name is Moritz Halbritter. I work on the Spring Engineering team, and I primarily work on Spring Boot and also on start.spring.io and the initializer library behind it.
This is, and I am uh, the world's whiniest Spring Initializer user, and the fact that you still respond to my messages just shows how kind and patient and nice and wonderful you are. And so, I've always been a very big Moritz Halbritter fan, obviously.
I'm not even sure if our chat system has a block list. I don't know.
It's not that you haven't looked though. Yeah, you can go ahead and admit it. No, I appreciate it. That initializer has become this like I've always loved the Spring initializer. That's my second favorite place on the internet, and I have endless gratitude, infinite gratitude for the way you have poured 110% of yourself into that and made it just amazing. Even more amazing.
It
So
looks easy. It looks easy on the surface, the thingy,
No.
but it isn't really. There's a lot of stuff going on when you configure your project. A lot of interactions between the modules and stuff like that.
I know. I mean, I don't think it looks easy. That's why that's what I'm saying. I'm super glad somebody is like somebody brilliant like yourself is
No, I mean the UI is like quite easy. You select your Spring Boot version, you type in your name, and then you add some dependencies. But the stuff under the covers, essentially, when you look into the code, what it's actually doing is it's not that easy. And then you have to support multiple generations of Spring Boot, and projects tend to rename all the starters and other stuff between the generations and stuff like that.
Well, I mean and that problem only gets worse as we move forward in time. Obviously, now we have new versions and all that. And by the way, so there was a time when the Spring Initializer code base was simple enough that I could send a pull request and I would probably get it right. I've given up on that. That time has long since passed. Even when our friend Stefan was maintaining it, after a few years, I started to say, okay, there's more than this because it's not just sometimes it's just a YAML file, just the properties.
Yeah, that's the easy part. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that and those are great, but there's actually one of the things that blows my mind is the idea that there's actually we evaluate the auto configuration for these conditions that then determine what other things should be, like the presence of certain things. We use the same mechanism as we do in Spring Boot to determine what code to generate.
Yeah, every time you press the generate button, it spins up a Spring context and generates the project and then zips it up and gives it to you. Yeah, that's what's happening behind the covers.
Yusuf, you can definitely ask questions. We'd love it. All of you, please ask questions. Hello from Cameroon. Hello from the world. Good morning, Moritz. Great video with Marit on nulls in Java. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Great stuff. Hello from Morocco. Hi. Good to see you. Just welcome. Good evening. Good afternoon. Good morning. So yeah, you work on the Spring Initializer. One of my again, invaluable website. I think it's one of those things where it has spawned a lot of copycats, and that's okay. It's such a great piece of infrastructure, and as concise as a modern day Spring Boot application is with Maven, there's still plugins and there's still lifecycle configuration, and we had that weirdness with the Java agent, and there's just stuff. There's even the build itself can be complicated these days, even with the abbreviated approach endorsed by Spring Boot for Gradle and for Maven. So I start regular. It's not like I write a lot of code that isn't Spring Boot, but if I do, I will start it with start.spring.io, and then just gut the project because it's a validly configured project.
Yeah.
I haven't used a Maven archetype in decades.
Yeah, me neither.
What is, by the way, can we talk about Spring Initializer? Like, are there any major features? I don't even know what that looks like. Do we have a roadmap for the initializer, or is it sort of like just care and feeding to get the versions where they need to be?
So this is the most maintaining work, like keeping the versions up to date, because we have a lot of dependencies. I think it's 260 or something which are on there. And every one of those has a version. So some of those are managed by Spring Boot themselves and the Spring Boot dependencies, but most of them aren't, for example, for third-party stuff. And for that, we have to keep the versions up to date. And then, of course, that when some project change stuff, we have to change stuff behind the covers. For example, when Spring Boot 3.5 will go out of support this month, so next month, Spring Boot 3.5 is out of open source support. And then we remove it from the initializer, then I have to do more stuff. And when 4.1 joins, we have to evaluate the dependencies if they are usable with 4.1 and stuff like that. So this is the most ongoing work. Besides that, there are no major features planned at the moment for initializer because we are quite busy with other stuff.
Oh yeah, of course. That's a good point, by the way. For people who don't know, go to spring.io/projects/. spring-boot, and then there's a little tab. You can actually, I think it's just hashtag support, and you can see the support window for your favorite project. I used Spring Boot in this example, but you could substitute whatever you want, and you'll see the little green bar tells you the open source support, and then the enterprise support, which is you pay us for that, and that one for the 3.5, that's the last of the 3X line, so that'll be a big one, right?
Yep, it's the same for 2.7. 2.7
Yeah.
X was the last of the, so 2.7 something was the last of the 2X line, 2.7X
Yeah.
line. So you have a very, very long support window, and I think that's the same for 3.5. We
mean the enterprise support?
Yeah, the enterprise support. Yeah, the enterprise support. We in open source, we always support like the two latest minors. So 4.1 and 4.0 are in support, and 3.5 will go out of support next month.
I think so. When you say next month, you mean like 4 days from now, right? Like
yeah, true.
July.
Yes, you're right. In July. So support is until June. And yesterday, I think we released the last bug fix version of Spring Boot 3.5.
3.5. Oh, okay, yeah. And
we had some regressions, and I think we have to put in dependency update. And so Andy did the release yesterday.
Just for people who aren't aware, there's another thing that should drive you. Like, there's always new features, and I love the new features. I spend my life living on these, sometimes on the edge, right? I sometimes I get cut because I'm always using the latest and greatest of these features. But there's another reason now that's more distinct than ever. Something I cannot believe I'm talking about in context of the Spring application, but there are CVEs now. And so please upgrade. You can pay us a lot of money and you'll get support. Don't do that though. I mean, you should. You could pay us a lot of money. We'd love that. But I'd much rather that you just be on Spring Boot 4.1 right now. If you can do that, if you're a small company and you've got 2 apps, just upgrade. Like, just do that. Trust me, you want to be on the latest and greatest. If you're a large company and you've got lots and lots of apps, then maybe you should call us. Have your people call us,
Yeah, there are a lot of CVEs in the last release we did, like with 4.1 and the projects before Spring Boot. There were a lot of CVEs in there. Yeah.
And this is driven, I mean, so what was it? Deshaun and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and it was like, and then you saw Purnima, our general manager, Purnima Padmanabhan. She's like such a legendary figure in the Broadcom and Tanzu ecosystem. She did an amazing blog just a few weeks ago. And I think maybe I hallucinated this like the AI models do, but I did she say, or did I see? Did you hear something about 1,700%? Right?
Increase of CVEs, you mean?
Yeah.
So Michael had this blog post on blog.spring.io about the security in the age of AI. I think it's what's called or something like that. Yeah. And there is a graph in there, and you see the spike of CVEs just coming in because the AI models and also the community using those harnesses are much better in finding CVEs, actual CVEs.
Yeah.
And of course, we have to deal with the incoming stream of CVEs. Some of them are false positives, some of them are hallucinations. We have to essentially look at all of them and decide is this stuff a CVE, how critical is it, and then we have to fix it.
Right. Huge. So yeah, please upgrade, everybody. Please. There's AI models, like you just said. We've been spending a lot of time on this. Even if the CVE is in isolation pretty minor, like we might have I don't know, I'm just making numbers up here, but what if there's a CVE that's a 2, and you say, well, I don't care about that, it's not going to affect me. The issue is not just that there's a 2, it's that you can chain these things together. And so if you have a 2 in your Spring Boot app and you have a bad bug in your build pack in your Docker file because you're not using build packs, that might be used together to chain an attack. One gives you access to one thing and the other gives you access to another, which taken together give you full access, right?
This CVE analysis from a user's perspective has worked when there are like 2 or 3 CVEs in there, and then you look at them and then you decide, am I affected or not? But if you are confronted with like 20 or 30 CVEs, good luck scanning through all of them, and it's much easier to just update to the newest patch version.
Yeah. Always be upgrading. Always, especially now. There's a lot of great features. We'll talk about them in a second, but the CVs I think are if I have one message to people, it's please upgrade. And by the way, this is we release the patches for these bugs in the open source, ahead of the publication of the CVEs themselves. And so, if you've got your tooling set up to detect new dependencies and you're automatically pulling those in and deploying to production, then you're good. You've got you're fixed before the world even knows there's a CVE,
Right. We only publish the advisories after all the stuff is on Maven Central. Yeah.
Yeah. But on the other hand, you could argue that, anybody with an AI model can find some of these things. We all have access to a lot of these. You can do some of this analysis. You can do it on even old models that will not run on a Raspberry Pi. They'll find some of these kinds of bugs. So is it really ever private? You know what I'm saying? My point is upgrade now. As soon as there's a release, please upgrade.
Yeah, I think that's the stance of the Linux developers, that if an AI has found a bug, it's essentially a CVE, it's essentially like a zero date, and you have to fix it immediately.
Yeah. So, and there's and we do a great job with backwards compatibility. I mean, there's two. If you ask, what did I do? I went to like DuckDuckGo or something, right? These search engines have AI, and if you ask one of them while logged out, I'm not logged in. I'm in an incognito window, and I ask them for which language and ecosystem has the best backwards compatibility story. It's the JVM and Spring, right? We are very, very good there. So you have very little reason to fear upgrading, and certainly there's a lot of benefits to doing so. But especially now, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So
when we fix CVEs, then we are of course taking into consideration not breaking stuff, because I mean people hate breaking stuff in patch releases, which is like totally understandable.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, we do a great job there. And this actually was a special release because not only was it a disproportionate amount of work, it was also well, since we make the schedule, there's no such thing as late, but it was a month later than perhaps people were expecting initially, and we did announce as such back. That's Michael Manella's first post from May, or did he stipulate that in the June one? There's two he did, right? Security in the Age of AI, and then the release train one. Anyway, the point is, it took 7 months, almost 7 months, for this release to get out the door after that insane 4.0 release. But it's here. Please upgrade. Go get the bits right now. Let's talk about 4.0 first. I know I dragged you into the show because of 4.1, which is awesome. But 4.0 is still, in my mind, this incredible thing. You mentioned nullability, right?
Yes.
And you did that presentation with Marit. We have a great question actually here. Yusuf asks, I'd appreciate if you explain improvements of JSpecify and null safety in Spring Boot. And guess what? This is exactly what we'll do. Can you tell us about it? What motivated it?
Of course. So first, let's talk about JSpecify. So JSpecify is a set of like 4 annotations where you can annotate your code with stuff which can be null. Okay, so you put @nullable on stuff which can be null. Now you may think, okay, but this is not new. Like those nullable annotations have been there in forever. There are some from findbugs and JSR 305 and other stuff. And now JSpecify has created their own sets of annotations. And the question is, why did they do that? And the main work of that is not to create 4 annotations, because I mean 4 annotations is like 1 prompt away, or like create 4 essentially interfaces. But the specification behind that, how those interfaces, how those annotations should work, so that every checker which checks for them behaves in the same way. And that's the important thing of JSpecify, the spec behind that. And we, as the Spring team, also had a say in the JSpecifies. We were also on the working group, and Sebastian Deleuze worked with the JSpecify working group to get the specification. And after they have released 1.0, all the Spring portfolio projects essentially adopted them. And some Spring portfolio projects already had nullable annotations. For example, Spring Framework already had nullable annotations, but those were from org.springframework.lang package and their own, and now they have migrated to JSpecify. And Spring Boot never had nullable annotations. So if you take a look at the Spring Boot code base before 4.0, there were like absolutely no nullable annotations. Sometimes in Javadoc there is a hint that this stuff could be null, but that this was not consistent. And what we did in 4.0 is we essentially added nullable annotations to the whole Spring Boot code base. So every time you interact with any of the Spring Boot APIs, you now know exactly what can be null and what can't be null.
Right.
And if you have an IDE which can read those annotations, then it already, you get those squiggly yellow warnings that this stuff can be null. And what we also do is we added a build tool which hooks into the Java C compiler to check nullability while compiling the project. So you essentially get the same null safe guarantee like Kotlin has in their type system, batched on top of the Java C compiler with a plugin. But this is essentially the story of JSpecify. They want to fix the $1 billion null pointer mistake.
Right. The Sir Tony Hoare, he also talked about concurrency, right? So he's quite the prolific name in computer science. Do we configure the null safety? I know our friend Toshiaki Maki built a Maven plugin to actually run the build.
Yes, I've shown that in the video I did together with JetBrains too. This is the Maven plugin, and there is also a Gradle plugin which does essentially the same.
Do you think we could ever get those on the initializer?
So we talked about that actually, and the biggest problem at that time was that it only works with JDK 25. So when you use JDK 25 to build, you can still target older bytecode. So you can compile with Java 25 and then target Java 11, for example.
Right.
So this is actually what we do in Spring Boot. So Spring Boot has a baseline of Java 17, right? But if you take a look at our build, we actually compile with a JDK 25, but we target bytecode level JDK 17.
Right.
Because there were some bugs in the Java C compiler before 25, which essentially broke null away, which is the thing which checks our JSpecify notations. And this is the reason we don't want to put that in the initializer, because then you had to essentially default to JDK Java 25, which is a bit weird. So this is the main reason why this is not as an entry in the.
Maybe we could have it where you could automatically add it if somebody chooses 25 and then not.
Yeah, or add something in the help file. Not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, it's there. You can definitely find it. We have we have the technology. It's just in the world there's a will, there's a way, right? So that's really cool feature.
And it's not that hard to get it configured. So for Gradle there's a plugin. For Maven there's now a Maven plugin, which does all the crappy parts in the background. And there's a lot of stuff when you configure that by yourself, because Nullaway is actually a plugin into ArrowProne, and ArrowProne is from Google, a static analysis checker, which plugs into Java C, and the Java C has no plugin system. It has annotation processors, but those annotation processors are somewhat limited, so you have to essentially pry open Java C and then plug you into it, what ArrowProne is doing. And you don't want to see how to do that, because just apply the Maven or the Gradle plugins, and they all do that in the background.
So much weirdness going on, but hey, at least we did it, right? It needs to be done. I'm just saying, I'm glad it got done. This is really important.
Yeah, the code base is much better. So if you use it from a null safe capable IDE, you get improvements, and if you use it from Kotlin code, for example, you can call from Kotlin to Java. The Kotlin compiler also understands JSpecify, because JetBrains is also a member of the JSpecify organization thingy.
That's so cool.
So it automatically translates that into the null safe type system of Kotlin.
Yeah,
that's super nice.
We have a good question here. I mean, I don't know what the answer. I don't know if you can answer this, but when might Spring Boot ever use a bytecode greater than 17? Certainly not in the 4.0 line, I guess. But maybe 5.0.
Maybe. I can't say much to that, because usually it's Spring Framework decides to up the bytecode level, and then we have to also use it. But at the moment, there are no plans, as far as I know of, that we want to target bytecode greater than 17. What we recommend is that you use a recent JDK, for example, JDK 25, if you want to have an LTS, or a JDK 26 even, because this is the latest one right now, to just run your Spring Boot application. But the bytecode level won't change from 17 anytime soon, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and it's a good question. I mean, I am not Jürgen, so I don't have any insight to any of this, and I'm sure he's done a lot more advanced analysis than you and I could ever do. But did you see our friend Simon Ritter on Java version? He did an article. Was it? It's crunch time for Java modernization, and he spells out the rather bleak timeline that's facing us, as Java users, right? Which is, oh my God, I got like 500 different pop-ups when I load that article. Basically, between 2029 and 2032, so that, 2029 doesn't feel like it's very close, but it'll be here sooner than we know it, right? Every currently supported long-term version of Java will reach end-of-life support within a single 3-year window. Java 17 in 2029, Java 8 in 2030, Java 21 in 2031, and Java 11 in 2032. So basically, even upgrading to Java 21 won't be a long-term stretch. Like, I don't know when Spring Boot 5 will come out. 4 just came out 7 months ago, right? So it's not going to be anytime soon. And Spring Framework 8, I don't whatever. How long did it take for the last one? It was 4 years, 2022, 2026. Yeah.
Yeah, 2020. So Spring Boot 3 was 2022. Yeah.
Right. So that was 4 years. So just using that as again, we don't know the future. Nobody's made any plans here. But 4 years from now, that's 2030. So if we raise the baseline, it's not going to be to Java 21 because that'll expire in 2031, right?
No.
And so 25, it would be I wouldn't want to be on 25 in 2030. On Java 25 in the year 2030, right? That would be silly because it's a 5-year-old JDK at that point,
I guess if we raise the baseline, we raise it to the latest available LTS version at that time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would have to be, right? It would have to be something. So I guess what I'm trying to say is get upgrade, please don't, just because you can use Java 17 today doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Yeah, I would always use like the latest LTS if you have a vendor which gives you LTS support, or even like the latest JDK available, because every JDK ships performance fixes and other great stuff. You just get performance for free.
I love it. Yeah, huge. Actually, that's a great thing. Try it, actually. If you've got an app, just take an old app, Spring Boot 2.7, just Spring Boot Start a Web, and just migrate it to Java from Java 8, Spring Boot 2.7, change the version, just add one dependency. Do nothing, like Spring Boot Start a Web. Just add that to the class path. Run the program.
It's now called Spring Boot Startup Web MVC.
You can still use web though, right? The web.
Yeah, you can still use web. Yeah, that's true. We have the web thing. We didn't move, but it's deprecated. But you never see any deprecation warnings. And
in Maven,
the newest one. So the renamed one is MVC, web MVC.
Yeah, I use I love the web MVC and the REST client. But okay, so my point is, you take that old one and then take the new one. Yep. It's like 20% faster startup time, half the RAM usage just by moving. I've done nothing to the code. I've done absolutely nothing. I'm taking the exact same starter and the same JVM, and then I'm taking the same exact project.xml, moving it from 2.7 to 4.1, and then restarting it on Java 25 from Java 8. Huge, 200% RAM reduction.
Yeah, there's a great 50%. Talk from Netflix from this year's Java 1, where they talked about how they use Java, and they also upgraded to a recent JDK version and then switched the garbage collector. And now they have no pause times anymore, which is like super crazy.
That's free. You just got to upgrade. And then, of course, that's not even talking about, you and I are not talking about using Leiden, right? We're not talking about using virtual threads. There's some huge numbers beyond just taking it and running Java -jar. Some huge gains to be had just by upgrading. So yeah, there's no reason not to use the new stuff. Okay, so anyway, 4.0 nullability, huge thing, big feature. Obviously the modularization of, and again, I know this is like 7 months ago, which is, the year has flown by. It does not feel like it's crazy. 7 months. But 7 months ago, we released Spring Boot 4.0, and you modularized, it's a weird word for me, all of the starters. What does that mean?
So we had in Spring Boot 3.5, we had a Spring Boot auto configure module. And the Spring Boot auto configure module is a huge jar, which has like, I don't know how many megabytes. And there are auto configurations for all the stuff. So if you, for example, put Spring Web on your class path, and then you have like a Postgres connector, What you also get is like auto configuration for Redis, for Kafka, for LDAP, for all the stuff which you may not even have on your class path. And that's because the Spring Boot auto configure thingy was one jar file which had all the auto configuration Spring Boot had inside it. And what we did in 4.0 is we essentially split that apart in modularized auto configuration. So there is now a Spring Boot Redis, for example, which has the properties and the auto configuration for Redis, and there is a Spring Boot Kafka, which only contains auto configurations for Kafka and the properties and stuff like that. And the biggest upside of that is that you now only have this stuff on the class path which you actually care about.
Yeah.
Okay, so because if you, for example, go into your application YAML and then hit Control Space in your IDE, in 3.5, it suggests all kinds of stuff. It suggests Kafka and Redis, even if you don't have Kafka and Redis on your class path, actually. Right. So why does it suggest the properties? Because the property are in this big fat jar. And now we split it apart, and now it only suggests those properties which are actually on your class path and which you're actually using. This is a big, huge feature from the developer experience standpoint. But of course, it also gives you some performance benefits because the JVM has not load that many classes. There are fewer classes on the class path, essentially.
That's a huge point right there. I mean, we have the Spring Boot dev tools, which I love. And the dev tools, by the way, if you're not using it, please, everybody, start that Spring.io, add dev tools. And then if you've already got a project and you're using IntelliJ, shut down IntelliJ, delete your .idea folder or move it out of the way or whatever, and then open the project again from pom.xml so that it'll initialize the on update action. Or you could just do it yourself manually, but you want to make sure that IntelliJ initializes with DevTools in the pom.xml and that it has the auto on update action so that when you tab away from your IDE, it triggers the compilation, which triggers DevTools. And the result is you're just flying. And the way it works is it creates a class loader of all the dependencies that are on the class path, keeps everything there, and then recompiles only the things that have changed as you're cycling through your code, as you're making changes. It creates a new class loader for just those new classes, loads that, but it doesn't recreate the old class loader with all the existing static dependencies that don't change from one compilation to the next, right? If you have Spring Boot Start a Web, it's still there. Why bother recomputing all that? Because that's a lot of I/O. You think about it, right? Every dependency on the class path is a zip file with files inside of it that have to be read, parsed, and analyzed, loaded into memory. And then when you shut down the JVM, all that goes away, and it's redone every single time. And by using DevTools, for me, it's like a 10th sometimes. At worst, I get it down to a third, which is still, that is to say, I still don't have to do 2/3 of the processing, right? It's a great speed up. And so that's because we're not constantly recomputing all this I/O, not redoing all this I/O for all the jars and all the classes on the class path. And it stands to reason, therefore, that when you do a modular starter with fewer classes to be parsed, loaded, and all that, you get a benefit. Maybe it's not, whatever. It's, for me, it was like a 10% on average, something like that. It was a nice win, and you get that for free. It also it seems like it opens up new avenues for the team, right? I mean, one of my favorite things is the REST client starter.
Yep.
Right. Why did that take so long? That's my favorite.
Yeah. So the problem behind this REST starters thingy is that the Spring Boot auto configure module essentially has to know what stuff is on. So how a Spring Boot auto configuration works is like it looks on your class path and then it finds stuff and then it configures Spring Boot to use it. For example, you throw the Postgres driver on the class path and then Spring Boot knows, oh, there is the Postgres class. Maybe we should configure a Postgres data source for you. Right? Yeah. So this is how the auto configuration works. But when you put web MVC on the class path, like Spring Web, we have no idea if you want like the server part of Spring Web or if you want also the client part of Spring Web.
Right.
And this also happens with Webflux. For example, you want to use the web client, which is the reactive HTTP client, essentially.
Right.
If you put Webflux on the class path, Spring Boot has no idea if you want to have a reactive web server or if you only want to have the reactive client. Right. And that's the problem. But now we have essentially split the auto configuration, and now there's a separate auto configuration for the Webflux server and for the WebFlux client. And the same is for the WebMVC server or for the WebMVC client part, like REST template and REST client. And this of course gives you more granularity, and this also improves the Spring Boot auto configuration because it now can react on much more targeted stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love it because if you think about, I mean, I love all of Spring, right? And Spring is really great on the web, but it's not the majority. You know, we have more projects that don't need the web than we do that do, I think, right? Like Spring for Apache Kafka, Spring Integration, Spring Batch, Spring Shell, Spring RabbitMQ, Spring AMQP, Spring. Maybe it's equal, but my point is, there's a lot. Spring AI. Right? None of this assumes the presence of a web server, right? And yet, for all those things, I would want to be able to make a call to another web service.
Yes.
Right? And so it's really so good, so nice. I mean, I love this, because my go-to was like Spring application type or whatever it was called, is none, just to disable the web
switch
server.
It off. Yeah.
Right. Which is that. And again, you're paying for that web server, like you said. The auto config was still being read, the property was still being parsed, and then being used to dismiss or disable the web server. But I just don't want the web server at all. Just make it go away. So nice.
Right. If you're migrating from 3.5 to 4.0, you have to essentially use the new starters. Most likely they don't have changed names, and the starters all do all the right bits in the background. But you still have to do some work. So there is dedicated migration guide, which we've written if you want to upgrade from 3.5 to 4.0. And there's also I did a talk at Spring I/O, which was quite well received, about how I would do a migration. Essentially, I migrated Pet Clinic from 3.5 to 4.0. Wow. And this is how I would do it, and I received some good comments on that.
Yeah, I've heard great things. Okay, so that's 4.0, huge release, big release. Let's talk about. I mean, obviously, I've done videos on this. I've done videos on the 4.0 release because it's such a big thing. But now we talked about 4.1. We talked about the CVEs. Let's talk about some of the features here. Can I go first? My favorite feature in 4.1, the MongoDB auto config for batch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are using Spring. Oh, by the way, salut, Teleria. Oh yeah, declarative HTTP clients. That's a nice feature in 4.0 as well. Wonderful feature. But in 4.1, for me, there's a new auto configuration to use Spring Batch repositories backed by MongoDB. And for people, it seems like such a small thing, but people don't realize. I mean, it's been years in the making. All these different things had to line up in the right way, and first Spring Batch had to add the support, and then there was just it was back in the 3.0 timeline first of all, and then in 4.0 we introduced auto config for, what did we add? Oh, we reworked the starters so that you had a batch JDBC versus just like batch without, because you can do
in memory.
In memory, yeah. So there's a distinction with that, and they had Spring Boot starter batch dash JDBC, and then of course there is another peer alternative, which is Spring Boot starter batch MongoDB. Now, and that wasn't there in 4.0. So this 4.0 thing, this journey to supporting MongoDB persistence was long and hard and wonderful, and it's finally here. I'm so excited. I mean,
yeah, that's usually how it works, right? With the Spring projects, like Spring Batch adds a feature, and then Spring Boot adds the auto configuration for it, and only then you can like really use it with a great developer experience.
Right, the ergonomics. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And it takes collaboration and careful consideration, and all this while we were trying to also fight a deluge of nullability and whatever. Now, what is your favorite feature? That's what Deshaun is asking, and that's what we all want to know.
Let's see. So I've prepared a list of all the stuff which is in there, because there's a lot of stuff in there. What I really like is the context propagation for async methods. This is an observability feature. And, when you use observability, you most likely want to have distributed logging, essentially, like log correlation, it's called. This puts the trace and the span ID, which is unique for every request, besides the log messages. But this trace ID is stored in a thread local. So if you switch threads, you also have to copy the thread local over, otherwise your trace ID is gone. And
Right.
this was a hairy feature when you, for example, use @async methods or use the async task executor, that the trace ID is just lost. And this was bugging me so much that I've added essentially auto configuration support for this context propagating task decorator thingy, which automatically copies over trace IDs into async
Really?
threads. Yes.
That is super cool.
It's still behind a property because it has some performance implications, because every time you spawn a new thread, you have to copy thread locals around. But if you enable that property, then all your thread problems should go away, as long as you use @async or use the async task executor from framework. Yeah.
Is that like inheritable thread locals, or what is that?
I have no idea how it works in the background, because it uses the context snapshot factory, which also can handle reactive stuff. And I don't know how this is implemented behind the scenes.
And that itself was a huge feature back in the 2.0
yes
timeline. Yeah.
Yes, all the context snapshotting. So this is like things which trips up users very often, and then only in production. And because if the trace ID is gone and you're tracing a bug in production, that's very, very annoying. Yeah, besides that, what else do we have? We have a lot of new open telemetry properties. Open telemetry stuff, I've added a lot of support for it.
You added the Spring Boot Starter Open Telemetry in 4.0, which,
yes,
as I understand it, is I mean, I've been using that every single time. All my demos since 4.0 for the last 7 months have had Open Telemetry, because it's now so darned easy, right? People don't, if you don't know, people go to start.spring.io, choose Docker Compose support, choose Open Telemetry. You'll have a Grafana instance running on port 3000. The Open Telemetry stuff just automatically starts sending stuff over there. It's the best demo ever. It's super, super easy. And now you're saying there's more in 4.1?
Yes. So if you take a look at how OpenTelemetry actually works, is OpenTelemetry not only has the Java SDK, but it also has like Python SDKs and C++ SDKs and TypeScript SDKs and other stuff. And usually OpenTelemetry is designed to be configured by environment variables. And Spring Boot has their own properties, right? And now you have this mismatch between, say you are a platform engineering team and you are given a lot of Java applications, a lot of Python applications, and now you have to essentially configure them for OpenTelemetry. And now you set environment variables, which are respected by the OpenTelemetry Python SDK, but not by Spring Boot, because Spring Boot usually only reacts on their own Spring properties. And we had some feedback in the issue tracker about how this is not like optimal, because they expect, if they set environment variables, that they are also like taken into account. And this is what we've added in 4.0. So in 4.1, sorry, in 4.1. So in 4.1, you can actually use the OpenTelemetry SDK environment variables to configure your Spring Boot application.
That's cool. That's super cool. So good.
That was a huge chunk of work, because you essentially have to read all the specifications and find out which variable does exactly what. We added more OpenTelemetry property support because we were missing some variables which they map to and stuff like that. But this is another huge observability feature I've worked on.
That's awesome. Well, okay. I mean, that's the release. Anything we can do to make observability more interesting, I think is super, super welcome. That feature. Okay. What else? It looks like you got a list and it's not even close to done.
I got a long list here. Look at that. I mean, it's handwritten.
Oh, handwritten. Imagine. I see Spring gRPC. I would love to talk about that one.
Yes. So I've got on there like Spring gRPC. That's a very big one. Then the context propagation, more observability stuff. File rotation support for Log4j. If you're one of the few which use Log4j, there is now file rotation support. Lazy JDBC fetching. Did you?
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Let's talk about that one.
Yes. So lazy JDBC fetching is essentially, so if you put an add transactional on a method, and even if you don't do any database operations in that method, it still adds a connection from the connection pool and opens a transaction on top of it. But if you add this lazy JDBC thingy, it only creates the transaction and only gets the connection if you actually execute a JDBC statement via Hibernate or whatever it means. So
Right.
this saves you a lot of round trips to the database.
And it also means that if you are getting a connection from the connection pool for the time you're in that transaction, you have that connection and nobody else can use it. And if there's a finite number of connections,
Yes.
then that means your system can handle fewer requests.
It's essentially a semaphore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're actually increasing your scalability by using this feature as well, right? You defer obtaining the connection until the very last second, if and when you need it. And if you don't need it, guess what? You don't pay for it. I love that. That's free scale.
Right. We have at Redis listener. I've not used that one, but I guess this is for the Redis streaming thingy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Spock framework is back. We had to remove it in 4.0, like the Spock testing framework, the Groovy testing framework. We had to remove it because there was no compatible Groovy release at that time, but it's back in 4.1 now.
Yes.
So if you're a Spock fan, you can now skip 4.0, just use 4.1.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're a Windows user, there's a great feature. The colors in the terminal are now on by default. It was all black and white in Windows 11, but now it's colored.
Yes. Finally, some civility.
Yeah. And we removed the Derby support. We deprecated the Derby support, but we not removed it, but it's deprecated because the Derby database essentially is deprecated.
I don't know if I care about that one. Like
me neither.
Yeah. Derby, I look, thank you, Derby, for your service. But I'm of two minds. First of all, if I can just run Postgres or my real database in a Docker image, then why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
First of all, and then second of all, if you're going to run an embedded database, H2 is like just rock solid. You know, it is fast, it's lightweight, it's embeddable, it's got a great user experience. It's basically got most of the features you want from Postgres. You know, you can actually run it as a server. H2 is kind of like the standards. I don't know.
Yeah.
But even there, I'm like, I think I'm closer to wondering about, well, couldn't I just run H2 in production? You probably could. I wouldn't, but you probably could.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like it's so good. I almost wonder if it needs to be just a testing thing. You know, I don't like the idea of having two databases, one for test, one for just use the same database for both. Same technology for both.
Yeah, use test containers. If your production database is Postgres, just use a Postgres database container. Test containers.
Yep. Oracle users, did you hear that? I think they did. You can run Oracle in
yeah, you can
in a test container now, right? Yeah.
There's support for, like, Spring Boot had this at service connection thingy, and there's support for Oracle database too.
Yeah, I like Oracle. That's a nice database. It's actually, so I use Postgres because for me it's like whatever 80%, 90% of all the features. You know, not anything close to 100%, but it's like the most interesting percent. You know, for me. But obviously, if I had infinite money and it was no issue, it was not like a factor. Yeah, like Oracle, please. Yeah, of course. I mean, that is the database, right? Redis streaming listener. Yeah, we talked about that, Deshaun. I love that one. Deprecated Derby. Oh yeah, Deshaun's saying he's got fond memories. It's like, it's a great one. Okay, can we talk about gRPC? Because this is the other one I've been itching for. I don't know. Can I explain the background here a little bit?
Sure. Go ahead.
So, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Dave, our Dr. Sire, he got, I don't know, was he bored? I don't know what he sort of stumbled upon this on this use case. We've been asked on and off over many years whether we had support for gRPC, and we never had to like have an answer because there's so many great integrations in the community, and I think some of them have become a little fallow, and some are behind, and you know, the story wasn't as good as it could have been. So we put together a project, and frankly, you know, it turned out to be a lot better. Actually, what Dave put together is really comprehensive because it has all the cross-cutting things that any of our projects will have. It has like Graalvm native image support. It has observability support. It has security support. You know, all the projects will have answers for those three itties. You know, those cross-cutting concerns. And they also integrate with the component model and integrate with the lifecycle, and it had auto config and it had property, just all the developer ergonomics concerns, all those things you get when you use a modern Spring project. And it's a really good project, but it depends on Spring Boot, which meant that it was just
Yeah.
one more thing that you had to manage separate from the Spring bill of materials, the Spring BOM. And I guess we were trying to get that into 4.0, and there was some.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure people, if you've been on the stream for more than a minute, we've talked about how insane 4.0 was. So it never made it, right? It slipped to 4.1, and it's finally here. I'm so excited. And so now it's managed by Spring Boot. And I know Phil reworked a lot of the so to make it even nicer for Spring Boot users and all that, and just really good. Really, really good. I can't wait for people to be able to finally use this and try it out, and love this project.
Right. The best part from my perspective is while moving it to Spring Boot, we now have like configuration of those Spring gRPC of the gRPC plugins, not Spring gRPC, but the
Right.
gRPC plugins and the protobuf plugins in Maven and Gradle. Because before that, if you generate a Spring gRPC with 3.5 on start of Spring.io and then look at the POM file, there's a lot of configuration for the protobuf plugin, the gRPC plugin, and other stuff
Right.
like that to get it to compile the protobuf files into Java files, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
with
it's in
Spring
the
Boot
parent?
4.1, this is all gone because it's all in the parent. Yes, I think we even added support in our Spring Gradle plugin that it reacts on the gRPC or protobuf plugins and then configures stuff there. So there's a lot less boilerplate. If you go to start of Spring.io, take Spring gRPC with 4.0 or with 4.1, there's a lot less of stuff in your XML you have to care about in your POM.
The rare win for both initializer and boot. Moritz right in the middle of all of it. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, of course. Oh, that's so cool. Oh,
Yeah, and this of course works only because Spring gRPC moved in the release train before Spring Boot. So now we manage the dependency versions, all of them. We have the auto configuration in Spring Boot itself, and we have the plugin configurations and other stuff in our parent. And now you can write gRPC services super easily. I think you have made a video on that, right? On Spring gRPC.
Yeah. I love gRPC.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a video on it, and again, just being able to go through that checklist of like, okay, I want to do testing. Is there a story there? I want to do security. Is there a story there? Is there observability? Is there a story there? Is there a security? All this stuff is just.
It hooks
so
super
good.
nicely in this whole Spring annotation idea. Essentially,
Right.
you create a class, you annotate it with service binding. I'm not sure what the annotation is, and then it creates a gRPC service out of it. That's great, or a gRPC client.
So good. We got a comment here. Temporary pause from the action here. Johnny says, I've just started using Spring Boot 4. Thank you. We appreciate you. I love that the resilience features are included, but would like more options on configuring when it should retry. Best would be if I could configure a REST client to retry in all 500 statuses without having to put the annotation on the method using the REST client, and then list all the 5xxx statuses I want to retry on. File an issue?
I guess the 5xx exceptions all have a common base class, and you should be able to put that base class into the retry exception thingy, and then it retries on all 5xx status. That's my guess. I haven't tested it, but I think that it should work.
Great point. Yeah, that's a good point, because there's deep hierarchies there.
Yeah, but if it doesn't work, create an issue.
Yeah, create an issue. What about Jackson? Anything new in 4.1 there?
In 4.1 not, but in 4.0 a lot.
Yeah. Jackson 3.
Yeah. In 4.1 I don't think we have changed much in Jackson. I think we've added properties and some customization features that you can specify your own factories or something like that, but I haven't looked deeply into that.
Okay, what is the SSRF stuff?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a Spring Framework feature where you can essentially declare trusted domains on your clients, but I'm not totally sure.
The docs say both reactive and blocking HTTP clients can now be configured with an INET address filter, which can block outgoing requests to specific addresses.
Oh, so it's a
This
firewall
features,
thing.
yeah. Wow, that's neat. I didn't realize that was a thing. That's really cool. Um, let's see. Yeah, the observability, we talked about that.
Yeah, so
Love that very much.
SSRF, let's jump back to the SSRF. SSRF
Okay.
is essentially server-side request forgery, and server-side request forgery is when you send a request to a server and you get the server to execute an HTTP request to something where it wasn't intended to go
Right.
to. For example, you can use the server as a jump point into some internal network which you couldn't reach otherwise as an
Yeah.
attacker. And this is, of course, something you don't want to have. So if you have this SSRF feature and you declare only the domains which the client is allowed to connect to, you essentially block this attack vector because it's a firewall for outgoing requests, essentially.
Right. You can whitelist the targets.
Right. Yeah.
So good. So good. Open telemetry, we talked about that. Oh, wait, there's a management endpoint in open telemetry. You can disable it. Oh, okay. So there
you
was
can
before,
disable the whole SDK with a property. Yeah.
Okay. Love this. Love this. SSL port, is that using so we have SSL support for RabbitMQ? Is that just using the connecting the
SSL
trust
bundles.
store and the bundles? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the bundles. So I don't know what version 3.3 or something like that, we added support for SSL bundles. SSL bundles is essentially the idea that there is a bundle, and on this bundle you can configure a key store and a trust store, and it also allows you to load PEM files and stuff like that, which Java usually doesn't support. And then you can reference this SSL bundle, for example, for Rabbit streams, and then it just uses the whole SSL stuff. And then it auto configures, like if you have client-side TLS, so MTLS, where both sides are authenticated, you can also plug that into in Rabbit streams in this case.
So cool. For people who don't know, we introduced the SSL bundle stuff 3.2, 3.3,
something like that. Right? Yeah.
And Scott, our friend Scott Frederick was doing a lot of that work, and it was like it seems like such a simple idea, which is, hey, all these different clients and services have some concept of SSL, and you'd think there would be a common abstraction there, but no, there's not. It's completely different for every single API. Kind of like transactions, we have the platform transaction manager in Spring Core to handle this concept of just integrating or unifying these disparate notions of batching, committing, and rolling back work. And so we created this connection. This is a SSL bundle abstraction, and you can give it was it trust material or something like that.
It's super awesome.
Keys and PEM and all that. And now, slowly we released a bunch, in the first version, but slowly it seems like every 6 months there's a new thing that we forgot to add, or we just didn't have time to add. And so now we have it for RabbitMQ. It looks like, is that what we just said? Yeah, RabbitMQ streams, right?
Like for streams, yeah.
And so, and you can. It used to be you had to define different kinds of keys and different kinds of formats, and now you can just define one in the entire application and point all your things that need those. I mean, you shouldn't. But my point is, it can be one abstraction, one thing. You define the SSL bundle in one place, and then you can point anywhere that needs those keys to that SSL.
Right, bundles. And it's much more flexible than the old SSL.file.something properties, because you can point it to PEM files. It can read Java key stores in all kinds of formats and stuff like that. The SSL bundle is a really, really great feature.
Yeah, and it's one of the things where it's one of the things where the value of the framework, like having a framework that sees the whole world for what it is, as opposed to this myopic perspective of one person's particular or one company's. Like, if I'm just dealing with Kafka, then this makes sense. But if I'm dealing with everything, Spring has this perspective on the whole world that only a framework can give you. And so we can solve these kinds of problems in a really nice way that scales. Let's see. Golly. Actually, there's actually a lot. Auto configuration is now provided for extracting authorities from a jot using one. What? This is amazing. I actually will try that out. I have an issue. I had to do exactly this. I think I had to do exactly this kind of thing for Okta. I had to write code, though. I couldn't use spell.
Oh, yeah, for the authorization server.
Yeah. Well, for the resource server. Yeah.
Oh, for the resource server. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. That looks amazing. I'm going to try that out. lazy JDBC connection. I mean, the lazy stuff. I mean, there's some things in here that are. Wait, you have process information in the actuator endpoint?
Yes. There is this info endpoint, and the info endpoint gives you all kinds of stuff. So you can actually enable those info contributors which you want to see. For example, the Java info contributor, there is an Java GC and heap usage and stuff like that in there. And there is also the process info contributor. And this process info contributor then tells you under which user is this process running, how much is the uptime and stuff like that.
Oh, there it is. Okay. In the release notes, a bit worryingly, the release notes don't mention the process ID, which is exactly the thing I wanted, but apparently it is there per the documentation.
Okay. So we missed that. Maybe it was already in there, and we just augmented it with more fields.
Oh, okay.
That could be true too.
Maybe. Looks good. Yeah, this is a nice thing to have there. That's cool. The info endpoint, for people who don't know, we have the actuator, and this is usually under /actuator/ whatever. And there's an info endpoint, which is usually empty. And so we've got all these really intelligent uses of this empty, you can have it do whatever you want, right? And so if you have the git commit build plugin on the class path, which is also pre-configured in the parent of the build of Spring Boot, you add that to your build and it'll automatically write out a git properties, and that information gets packaged up in the jar. And you can see the build time and the git commit that triggered the build that results in the code that you're seeing running.
And that I think is super useful. So if you don't know what program is actually running or what revision is actually running in your application, in your production, you can just look at the info endpoint, and then it gives you the complete git SHA hash, which is running in production. This is super helpful.
Super good. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Even more interesting information there. What happened? I saw some stuff related to the build. Okay, Maven plugin, load layers from configuration from class path. Oh wow, there's so much stuff. Anyway, this release, huge, big release. I'm looking forward to. I thought my favorite feature was the MongoDB stuff, but now I'm starting to wonder if it's the gRPC stuff or the lazy connections or the async context propagation. And I'm actually not sure. This is where I am right now. And also the security. I'm really glad to upgrade and not have any CVEs. That's my favorite feature.
Yeah, that's a good feature to have, right? If your box don't get popped.
Yeah, please upgrade. My friend, anything we should leave them with? Anything that we have failed to address that in my capacity as a host have been
no, I don't think so. We have like a very comprehensive stuff of 4.0 and 4.1. So upgrade to a version which is supported and has actually CVE fixes. That would be the best idea. And then take a look at how to upgrade it for 0 and for 1 if you haven't already.
And we have a Jackson 2 bridge. That's, I think, the only bump in the road you might hit is when going from 3 to 4, and it's, if you want, you can use the bridge and then you're on 4. And once you're in 4, it's easy to get to 4.1, right? Like, just get to 4.1, please. Okay, my friend, thank you for hanging out. You're, as always, the legendary
thanks for having me.
Moritz Halbritter. Are you on the internet? Do you want to be found? And if so, where can people find you?
So the easiest way to find me is essentially on my website, which is mhalbritter.github.io. And there are all the links to all the socials on there. There is also all the presentations I gave with the recordings and stuff like that. There's everything.
Is this new?
Not sure. Not that new, but like a year ago or so. Everything is on there, which you need to know about me.
Look at you, got an answer. This is a great answer to that question. Well done. That's my new favorite feature of the last. It's a nice website. All right, my friend. Thank you. Bon vacances. Have a great vacation. And
thank you. You too, Josh.
Get back. Cheers.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
See you. Bye.